Hi, good evening. So I've got a special guest with me today, and this is Daisy. And that's the reason why we're doing our talk a little bit earlier than usual tonight, and in a different setting than what I've been doing previously or recently. And so tonight's talk is about the health benefits of pets. In this case, I have a just over 3-week-old kitten that currently I am bottle raising. Uh, Daisy here, she came to me as a feral kitty that was abandoned by its mama in the backyard. And because I've got some experience with raising a few bottle kitties last year, then I took her on as a little bit of a challenge for today. Anyway, there's few things in life more rewarding than taking care of a little tiny baby from bitty bitty kitty all the way up to full blown cat. At any rate, so today Daisy here is going to help me demonstrate some of the health benefits of sharing our lives with animals. And so I went to my favorite resource, Dr. Greiger's nutritionfacts.org, and of course he does have some presentations that relate to having animals in our lives. And so even just living with a furry animal in the house seems to reduce the risk of respiratory infections by a little bit. And in particular, sorry Daisy, but dogs were actually a little bit better at reducing the risk of the common cold than kitties were. But I don't know, the dogs might not be quite as cute unless they're just teasing. I do like doggies too. But the cats were lowered the risk of getting coughs and colds and such as that. Now, that is if you're not allergic to cats. Some folks with asthma may not do well with the cats in the house, especially if they're allergic to said cats, in which case the cat dander can actually cause the asthma to worsen a little bit. And then there was another one that talked about how cats, even just having lived with a cat in the past, lowers the risk of lymphoma. Now that's a blood cancer. So other than that, I don't really have terribly much more specifically from Nutrition Facts on the kitties. There is a little article and there's a few videos with different kinds of things there in case anyone's interested in checking out the original research on it. But oh yeah, there was one more thing that was on there I almost forgot, and that was how dogs and cats lower the risk of a stomach illness in children. That's gastroenteritis. Basically, when folks have a dog, they're a little bit more likely to swap bacteria around between the family members who are all presumably interacting with the doggy. The cat owners didn't seem to swap the bacteria quite as much, and maybe just because of the differing personalities of cats and dogs. Cats tend to be a little bit more not as social butterflies as the doggies are, although that all very much depends on the cat. There are some cats that are extremely social. So what else should people know about cats in particular, at least as far as health benefits and liabilities, so to say? One common area to note is the area of pregnant ladies and something called toxoplasmosis. So toxoplasmosis is a little microbe, and it is fairly common in kitties. And the risk is that if somebody is pregnant and they happen to be changing out the kitty litter, then there's a risk that this toxoplasmosis could get into the mother and basically cause some health problems for the infant fetus before it's born. And so if a woman is pregnant, one of the things we always advise, in addition to all the other standard stuff like avoiding lunch meats and such, is usually we advise that somebody else take care of the kitty litter during that time. So don't worry, Daisy. Let's see, what else? There's some studies that show that that just petting an animal can help with lowering the blood pressure. There seems to be some mixed results on that stuff, so I would probably vouch for it being true because I'm a cat fan, so or an animal lover, but you gotta also go with what the science says. And then there is some stuff about how the animals can also potentially lower the risk for other things that are stress related because these little guys are very good at relieving stress. There's some information about they can also potentially help with depression, anxiety, partly because they can be really, really, really cute. And then just being around animals and sharing with others can teach some children responsibility. It can also create a sense of openness as well, because you're not just taking care of yourself, but you also are taking care of others as well. And I saw an interesting article today from one of the pet websites. I think it was PetMD or something, one of those resources. So I haven't independently verified this yet, but they were talking about how women that owned cats actually had lower rates of things like strokes and heart attacks and better body strength, partly because they were doing things like lifting kitty litter and, you know, interacting with the animals and all like that. So anyway, so I gotta admit today's just partly all about showing off the little one here and having a few fun words to say about health benefits of animals too. So I encourage you to consider, if you're not allergic to cats or doggies, to consider many of the benefits of adopting or foster caring for a little kitty or a little doggy, or anything that's appropriate for your situation. Dogs have been helpful for folks to help them get out of the house, for example, because people have to take them out and go for walks, and then they end up more in the sunshine and more exercise. And sometimes there have been some stories about animals helping with their owners, like, for example, if the owner's having trouble with the animal, the doggy or the kitty might go find somebody else in the household to go get some help for the ailing person. So there's a lot of incidental stories along those lines as well. Where you go there, kitty? So, and in Florida especially, there's a lot of cat shelters that are in need of volunteers. And so you don't necessarily need to own the animal to be able to benefit from hanging out with one. They're always in need of people to help socialize their animals, cats and dogs alike, because a kitty that's more, or a puppy that's more socialized and reacts better to people is one that's much more likely to get adopted. And so sometimes people say in taking care of a little one, they also end up taking care of themselves as well. So, alrighty. Well, I hope you enjoyed our little extra early debut of little Daisy here, and talk about some of the health benefits and joys of caring for animals. And this can also be very helpful for helping with fighting depression or anxiety as well. Because again, when folks are feeling anxious or depressed, they kind of get their minds tend to be kind of, thank you, Isha, the minds can tend to get kind of stuck in one little groove or one little thought pattern, and sometimes having a little one nearby will help to break someone out of the thought pattern that was disturbing to them. And so one of my colleagues that talks about physician suicide, actually, she has a whole bunch of letters in which she sometimes will write back and say what she wished she could have told the person before they passed away. And one of the things she was saying was, boy, I wish we could have, had you have something like a kitten or something. And on one hand, it might seem a little bit facetious, but on the other hand, there is something really joy creating about having little ones nearby. And again, people don't necessarily have to own in order to be able to take the benefits. Because especially with the number of pet shelters, they're always looking for volunteers and so forth. So, do you guys have any questions or anything? She certainly doesn't have any questions other than how much more kitten replacer are you going to give me? And this actually kind of reminds me a little bit about some of the dietary stuff too. Because when taking care of little animals, it's very obvious that things like milk, the kitten is going to very much enjoy this kitten formula, this milk replacer, for the first few months of her life. Actually, in a matter of fact, usually within a few weeks of being born, they end up getting weaned off naturally. The vet was telling me that there's a good chance that she might be able to get weaned sometime in the next week or two, actually. It all depends on the kitten. Some are a little faster than others. And you think about it, of all the creatures on the planet, the only ones that actually take milk into their adulthood, and this is by culture, is the humans on the planet. And we're not even having our own milk, we're having, another animal's milk. We're having, cow milk or goat milk or something like that. And so it's a fairly not as natural, I guess, in the sense of what the species normally would be doing if we're kind of left to our own in the wilderness, kind of stuff. And so it's not as surprising that sometimes people have some of the health problems when consuming things like dairy as well. I agree. And so basically, one of the things that I was kind of sort of thinking about whether to do a talk on acne tonight, and then I remembered I had my little kitten and figured I'd do some gratuitous kitten videos for you guys tonight. But one of the things that I've found the most success with treating my patients with acne is simply having them get away from dairy products. Because the dairy products naturally have some hormones in them, and that's just because they come from, pregnant cows and stuff. In the case of the kitten replacer, I'm not quite sure. I think it's mostly based on cow milk, but anyway, so the dairy products, they basically stimulate our systems in such a way that it causes the bumps to come up on the face. And so I've had many patients that have found improvement in their acne when they swapped out their dairy products for some non-dairy alternative. I usually recommend soy milk, mostly because of the many, where are you going there? Many health benefits of soy. Yes. And you can see cats have a natural tendency to just go up and up and up and up. There's nothing back there for you, kitten. Yes. She says, that's not going to stop me. I'm going to go up anyway. Here, how about... Oh, want more bottle? No, okay. Well, there she goes. So, there you go. So, anywho, does anybody have any questions or anything for tonight, for this early episode of Doc Talk and gratuitous kittening? There she is, in case anyone wants a closer look at our star of the show tonight. This, for those who are just joining us, is Daisy. And she is just over 3 weeks old now, per the veterinarian. And that's my finger. There you go. And so I had a little talk on the health benefits of having furry animals in the house, such as cats. And apparently one of your biggest benefits is lowering our risk of catching the common cold. Who would have thought a little kitty could be that powerful? I have no idea off the top of my head what the mechanism of that is, but sometimes these association studies can be kind of fun to go back and see how they figured that out. So if you're curious at all, the original studies that I'm referring to are highlighted on the website nutritionfacts.org as well. So another thing that comes to mind when comparing humans with other animals, such as cats, is a couple of little anatomy things. Dr. McDougall, another doctor I'm kind of a fan of, talks a lot about his little kitty and the tendency of different species to eat different kinds of foods naturally. So if you see this little one, she got her paw out there and she's really prone to tapping at things to basically as though to catch them and eat them. And she's got these beautiful sharp claws and these really sharp pointy teeth. They don't really do much damage at this very second because she is so tiny. But it's very, very clear that everything about this little critter is all geared towards catching and pouncing and consuming things like little insects. I've got a couple of other cats around, not here. This is kind of a protected space where having the kitten be raised up without the other cats bullying her or interfering or anything. And you see a little fly get in the room, and oh my gosh, there's madness and mayhem with these cats just instinctively going off to catch them. And so it's kind of fun to compare biology and see what kind of features tend to go along with the animals that have a tendency towards being meat eaters. Except for at this very early stage of life, where she's totally dependent on milk of one sort or another, either can replace her milk versus mother's milk from the mama kitty. Cats are 100% carnivores. In fact, they're what you call obligatory carnivores. In other words, a cat must eat meat in order to survive. Otherwise, if you try to make a kitty vegetarian or vegan or anything along those lines, you'll very quickly end up harming the kitty and causing an untimely demise. And you see there's a lot of features of the cat that are uniquely geared towards hunting and catching and stuff. There's also other things that people note where most of the built of the cat is towards the front, and then they tend to not expose the soft parts underneath where the organs are very much. Where are you going there? And so, anywho, there you go, kitty. There, maybe you can go over the shoulder that direction. There you go. And another thing that I noticed from raising some feral kitties last year, I had some feral mama cats that I tamed down and had the pleasure of watching them give birth, and well, not give birth per se, but I took care of, helped with the kittens afterwards a little bit. And just simply watching these kittens go to their mama cats and nurse, and universally after nursing, the kittens would fall asleep. And it was kind of like they were drugged a little bit in the sense that immediately after they got their dose of mama milk, they would be totally passed out. And it was pretty universal. They would just get very sleepy and fall asleep. And there's a reason for that, because in the mother's milk, there's actually a morphine-like substance called casomorphine. Yes, there you go. You have some more casomorphine. I also call her the the black and white hole, because it seems that she is always hungry. But anyway, so after they have the milk, basically the kittens fall asleep as a result of having the that casomorphin. And humans, it also can have a little bit of a sedating effect, which is one of the reasons that sometimes people will suggest having a cup of milk before bed or something. I don't personally recommend that because of the downsides of having dairy products, but it's pretty apparent what a big effect it has on the little ones here. All right, so speaking of, this kitten is looking appropriately tired from all of the attention tonight, so I think I'm going to wrap up. And then I'll give you one more look if we can get her to go closer. She's like, I don't know about this. Hard to do there. There you go. So there's one sleepy kitten. All right, well, thank you for joining us on the Doc Talk show tonight, and hope you enjoyed watching this little show with little Daisy here. Say goodbye, Daisy. No, don't chew the chin. All right, she's still got a little learning and a lot of growing to do. So thank you all, and we'll see you next week. Okay, bye-bye.